Welcome to the Value Maker podcast. My name is Ryan Perist. I'm your host, supported by Heather Bicknell, as we meet with the people that make the digital workspace work. It's about the technology, it's about improving people's work experience and finding the return on value. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, my name's Chris Mercer. Everybody calls me Mercer. I am the co-founder of a few different brands, measurementmarketing.io being one of them, Measure Summit, which is the largest virtual measurement conference of its kind in the world. And then more recently, Profit School, where we teach entrepreneurs and business owners how to build and lead their teams.
Great. And where are you based again? I actually didn't even ask you.
We are based in Austin, Texas.
Nice. I've been to Austin.
Yeah.
Nice place.
It is. Yeah, it's a great place. Where are you based?
I'm in West Sussex in Horsham, but I'm South Africa originally.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I've been here about 12 years now.
Very cool. Yeah, I've actually been here about 12 years. They both moved around the same time.
Oh, probably, yeah. I remember actually there's some really nice smokehouses in Austin.
And that is a fact. They know their barbecue.
Yeah, they do. They do for sure. So multiple brands. I mean, which is your first one and which was your favorite one?
Oh, that's actually an easy question. I was going to say that's a good question, but it really is. It's an easy one. So the first one was measurementmarketing.io, where, I was teaching WordPress stuff, and that led into building WordPress sites and then conversion rate optimization. And when we started doing that, we got really good at setting up measurement, because obviously you've got to, in order to optimize things, you have to measure stuff. But pretty quickly, when we started measuring things and delivering WordPress sites and everything with Google Analytics setups, the conversation quickly changed from the market, which was, hey, we don't need WordPress stuff. Like, there's lots of people to do that, but no one knows how to do this other thing. Like, how do you make Google Analytics make sense? So that's where we pivoted and stopped doing that. Just wanted to measurementmarketing.io, just training companies how to use measurement as a system and as a strategy. And then, yes, of course, we'll teach you all the different tools as well. So measurementmarketing.io was the first, and the favorite is really Profit School, because that's where everything's been headed for me. I'm a big systems guy, I'm a big operations guy, and I think there's too many entrepreneurs, many of them friends of mine, that are out there searching for their integrator to help them run a company, and it's a huge mistake. A lot of these systems, I think, like EOS and Traction, they're great. They are great. They're just a little too big for what small business owners really need, and I have a personal passion for small business, being a small business owner myself. So helping small business owners kind of move from that, I'm a freelancer with a team mindset to, okay, I'm a business owner that is learning how to build a team so that the team can then build the company, and so you just sort of learn to get out of their way, and give them the resources they need. So Profit School is definitely my favorite.
It's good to hear that, because what you've just explained from a marketing point of view is very similar to how we do with value for digital transformation. It's all about systems, operations, measurements, that sort of thing. So it's very in two different parallel streams. We kind of care about the same thing in some respects. And the schooling part, I've always wanted to do training courses and do training as a thing, but never really thought I could teach anybody about anything.
Interesting.
Yet the more I do this stuff and the more podcasts I do, funny enough, the more I realize that there's a whole lot of knowledge, not as I have, that when I talk to other people, that they have explored the same things and they've all done it the hard way. And being able to make it a little bit easier for somebody is the education you can share.
That's exactly right.
How do you avoid this mistake that we know you're going to make?
Yeah, to help shortcut time. That's exactly right. Because I think a lot of people, when they start learning, they bounce into walls a lot to kind of feel the way around the room. And when the trainer is the one who comes in and says, hey, listen, let's go to the light switch first. That was your mistake. You're not turning on the lights. You think you should just walk through rooms by feeling your way through, bouncing against walls to know where the limits are. And that's because that's what everybody does for the most part. So you don't know you're doing it wrong because everyone else is doing it like that. So it's like social proof in reverse, right? But when you have somebody who says, hey, let's turn on this light switch first, now all of a sudden it's a lot easier to move through the room, So that's what I love about education. Because once you know where the light switch is, you'll never unsee that. You'll just be like, oh, cool, I know the light switch. Now it's easier for me. And that's what I like about it. It's talk about value, right? It's giving that value to that person, and that's what literally it fuels me, is turning on the light bulb where they go, oh my gosh, I can never look at that differently. And I'm like, exactly. Now you know the light switch. And that's the coolest thing for me. Just from an instructor standpoint, I love that.
And there's that moment when you talk to somebody and they've been really struggling with a concept and then they understand it. And you can see the sort of blinkers open up, and then there's your value as well, that you've now educated someone I can't remember the name of the guy who runs NVIDIA, but he's saying
Oh,
this.
Jensen Wong, I think.
He's something. Well, yeah,
Some similar, yeah. The
but he
current
has,
CEO rock star. Yeah.
yeah. But he has this saying about how he will torture you into the person you need to be, and it's kind of like counterintuitive, but it makes a lot of sense. Like for someone who's going through that change, right? It's a painful change, but once they make the change, then the pressure relieves. But you've got to torture. It is torture for them to go through it. And
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I was going to say, it's fascinating because when I was talking to my team and want to have my one-on-ones, right? Especially when they're new team members coming on board. Like we recently merged with another business called Data Driven You. We did that probably about 6 months ago now. And in talking with their team, because my original team knew this about me, but in talking with the new team, and it relates to what you were talking about with the, NVIDIA CEO, is I sort of try to preface how I treat people. And I do this with everybody is when I'm talking to you, I'm talking to that next version of yourself that you're about to become. That's always who I'm talking to. So, and I warn them about this because I'm like, sometimes it can feel like I'm never satisfied, right? Where it's like, but I'm not, that's not where it's coming from. It's coming from that, like, oh, you can be like just this much. There's a better version of you just right behind where you currently are. And as a manager, and this is because it's the role of a manager to do this, the manager's job is to pull that version forward to help that person become who they truly want to be. I'm not trying to manipulate them into something they're not. That's not the case. It's they also want to be better. They just can't see how. So I have to speak to that person just right behind who they're about to become to help them pull that forward as a manager. And then when I do that, what do I see? Well, as a manager, I see the next version that they may not even see right yet, because they're just trying to running into the role, but I'm constantly trying to help the team to do that. And then eventually give them the tools so they can do that on their own, just kind of basic personal development, business development. But I think that's a huge miss in a lot of management that's happening right now is people aren't doing that. If anything, managers are being led by their teams and not the other way around. I mean that in a bad way, not led like, oh yeah, my team's empowered and can do it on their own. That's the different thing. I mean, where the managers are being told, like, here's how you're going to do it. And that shouldn't be happening. Managers need to lead their teams and then give them the tools and resources they need to help lead themselves. That's the whole.
yeah, I can understand that because a lot of people that put in management positions are not trained.
Exactly right.
So either you have someone who's naturally can do it and figures it out versus someone that is thrown in there and gone, well, you're the best person. So the best salesperson, you're the best salesperson. So you're going to run this team. That person was the best salesperson because they were a good salesperson, not because they were a good team manager or people manager.
Yeah. It's a different system, right? Management's a different system than performing the thing, going back to that salesperson example. The systems you use to be a really good salesperson are very different than the systems you use to be a really good manager. And you're right. They don't train that. And some people flop around sometimes trying to figure it out or find their own, grabbing a book or trying to train themselves on it.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, that's the thing. I mean, someone who will teach themselves is probably going to be a good leader in the end, but someone that is going to be taught to be managed by the people below them or around them will probably fail.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Or fail and learn by failing a lot and maybe get lucky on the fifth attempt, not the third attempt or the second attempt.
Sometimes you don't have the time to do that. That's the problem, right? It's like, do you have the time to let you go through 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 examples of, do you finally learn, oh, here's the better way to do it? Or do you just go, okay, how much can I shortcut by getting training to help out with that? Or to, even, reading a blog post, Google anything that says, okay, how do I figure this thing out? What steps can I take?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think, I use sports as a comparative. People that tend to have played team sports tend to be better managers because they've had a basis in being part of a team as kids and learned some skills there that they didn't even know they learned.
Yeah. And to that point, the other thing you learn from sports, the best coaches, the best men aren't necessarily the best players either.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And that's constant. So I love sports as an example for that. Because I think a lot of business professionals, like you said, with the salesperson is such a common mistake, right? Where the number one person now becomes the manager and then the whole thing implodes. And it's predictable that happens. Of course, sometimes it doesn't, but that exception does not prove the rule. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, mostly it's you're putting yourself in probabilities that it's going to fail if you do.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I remember my dad actually telling me a story about a guy in a wheelchair who was the hitting coach. And it's because he couldn't actually get up and show them how to hit that he had to train them for his position, and because of his angle on it, because he's
See something that they couldn't see. I love that.
Yeah,
I
it's
love
amazing.
that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah. So I mean, let's talk a little bit about what your two businesses do then. So let's talk about marketing, because I mean, you hit on a nerve for me, because I looked at Google Analytics about 6 months ago and said, you know what, actually, not for me. I'm going to hire somebody.
Like what most people do. Yeah, so true.
So maybe give me a story or a few successful stories, maybe of how you've helped people get their head around that monster, that beast.
Yeah, it's a really good question, because people look at that tool and admittedly they do exactly what you did, which is they jump into it, go, let's figure this out. And they go, okay, I'm just get kicked in the teeth too many times now. I'm going to leave for a little while, come back in a couple of years and try to figure it out. But that is not your fault. Like, that's just how it's built, right? It's a tool that's made by engineers for engineers, which is why it looks like that, right? Engineering. Like, it just is.
Yeah.
So two things. One, I'm going to come back to the gateway drug that I'm going to recommend instead of Google Analytics to get started with measurement, because there's one that's a lot easier to wrap your head around and get some wins from. So we'll come back to that. But when it comes to Google Analytics, with, specifically Google Analytics 4, which is the newest version of itself, it is an incredible platform. The trick to Google Analytics, and I think this is a lot on Google's end, is they sort of promote this like, oh, you just put the code on your page and then you can start using Google Analytics. That is so not true. That is absolutely not true with that tool. There's a huge difference between activating the tool and setting up the tool. And the problem is people don't realize they need to set it up. They have to sort of train Google Analytics to speak their language, to measure the things they want to measure, to do it in the way that their specific brand is. So your setup of Google Analytics 4 should be radically different than my setup of Google Analytics 4. I'm going to see different things in my Google Analytics 4 than you would in yours. We have, in Google Analytics 4, they call them the events. They're all called events. And events are just behaviors. Like, what behavior am I measuring on this site? So an event for us might be like with the measurementmarketing.io brand, we have the Measurement Marketing Academy that trains all this stuff. So we've got an event that says, oh, they're now aware of the Measurement Marketing Academy. We have an event that says, oh, they are considering the purchase of the Academy. We have an event that says, okay, they've now purchased the Academy. We have these specific events. It literally says Academy in the event, because that's what our brand calls it, right? It speaks our language. So Google Analytics 4 has been, in essence, sort of trained or customized to speak the way that we speak as a company. So it's much easier for us to use it. And that's because we know how to set it up, right? And again, that is the mistake with Google Analytics 4, because otherwise, when you, and I'll explain it a slightly different way. If you've played Scrabble, probably most people know Scrabble. We've got these little Scrabble tiles, and all the tiles spell out words, and you get points with the words. If you take a bag of tiles and you sort of dump them on your desk, how many words can you just see? You can. You're going to find something that's just randomly going to make sense. But most of it's going to be junk. It's going to be a bunch of just ripped up tiles, right? Where they're not really connected. But when you put them on the board in a certain way, all of a sudden there's a natural story that appears. Same tiles, different order. Now you can see the story that they're trying to communicate. With Google Analytics, it's very much like that. And when you just turn it on, if you just activate it, you get all the data, but that data is like individual tiles. It's all there, but it's not really connected in a way that tells a natural story. So you set up the board, right? You set up Google Analytics 4 in certain ways, right? Setting up what they call key events. You set up how you do your traffic and tag your traffic coming in. You set up, there's automatic events, there's behavior-based events, there's custom events you set up, and you do all of this. And it takes time. Like, that might take 5 or 6 hours, training it yourself and practicing it. But once it's done, it's done. That's the good part. Is, you just sort of, it's over. You don't have to do it over and over again. But once that's in place, you've changed the board. So now that data tiles are all lining up. So now you're not like, all right, I have to go analyze my data. I think if anybody has to say had to analyze data, it's too complicated. You've made your reports too complicated. You should not have to analyze data. You should be able to see the data, see the story, and go take an action now, because who's got time to look at numbers all day long? Kind of like a car dashboard. Like, when you're driving, you see how fast you're going. You instantly know, do I hit the gas or do I hit the brake? That number tells you what action to do, and it's intuitive. And that's because that's how a car dashboard has been designed. I think a marketer's dashboard should be the same way. Super simple, leads to action, no analysis required. So that tool, that Google Analytics 4 tool, is incredibly powerful, and it can absolutely do that, but it requires an investment of time, effort, and energy to get it to that level. And I think going back to where I think Google's mistake is with that tool is they're out there sort of saying, hey, just throw in the code and then you can start using it. And you really can't. If you do try that, you're going to run in more often than not. You're run into what you experienced, which is like, all right, I have no idea what any of this means. I know where things are. Things seem to contradict one another. And then you just back away and go, I'll go to something else. So that's sort of the little soapbox on Google Analytics 4. Great tool. You got to spend some time with it though. Now, the gateway drug tool that I would say anybody that's had that experience where you're like, yeah, I get it, but I'm just not interested in Google Analytics 4 anymore. I would look at Microsoft Clarity, and we do both. We have both on our site. Okay. They are very different tools. Microsoft Clarity is kind of Microsoft's answers to Google Analytics, but it's very much qualitative pictures, not a lot. There is data, but it's not a lot of data table. Like and their whole design is very different, very marketer friendly for sure. So what it does is heat maps where you can see what people are clicking on. It does scroll maps. You can see how far down they're scrolling. It does automated screen recordings of every page on your site. And it is simple. It doesn't require a lot of setup. You just put the code on your page and all the stuff comes through, but they're not collecting everything that Google Analytics 4 might, but they're collecting the stuff that's useful. And now, because of course they have this little teeny company called ChatGPT they've been partnering with that you may have heard about. Now you've got AI. So you can go to the screen recordings and say, I want to see this segment of people that are seeing this specific offer page, maybe from this specific traffic source, then analyze and tell me, make the AI do this, tell me what, generally speaking, most people are doing when they hit the lander. So then you start to understand the behaviors because it'll literally tell you a story of what's going on. Now, if you like those behaviors that's happening from the traffic source, cool, scale traffic. But if you don't, now you've got some clues as to what you might change to get different behaviors from that traffic source, ideally behaviors that continue the journey, if that makes sense. So again, Google Analytics 4, incredible tool, very powerful, so much more powerful than Clarity is, and requires training. You just have to learn how to use that tool in order to unlock power. Microsoft Clarity, much easier to get started with. Not as powerful. They are definitely opening up new features that are getting closer and closer to that, but super easy to get started with and faster to get, I think, action from when you're just starting out in the world of measurement.
I didn't even know Clarity existed, to be honest. So that was
honestly, it's almost like Microsoft's best kept secret. It really is. It's a shame because that team, like we recently created a course. We have it on our YouTube channel. So just measurementmarketing.io/YouTube will take you there. But we have a whole playlist that we're creating for them because they reach out to us and we're like, we don't have the resources to create a bunch of training programs. Like they're trying. They have an incredible tool. They put all their resources into making the tool amazing. And they don't have a ton of resources to tell people about how amazing the tool is. So we're kind of like, great, you make that product amazing. We will continue to tell people about the product and to help them out because it is a good product. We've been using it for years and years and years since, when we were barely, 100 people in the world knew this product was. So it's starting to get out there more, but to your point, not a lot of people know about it. And it's just easy to go to clarity.microsoft.com to create, and it's all free. That's the best part. Both tools are free. Google Analytics 4 and Clarity.
Yeah, because I mean, my sort of experience with Google Analytics is you basically go get the site code that you create your website for. You go put that into the site that you're working on, and then you just leave it there. And at some point, you're going to look at it to try and get some information out of it. But I mean, I have spoken to people that have told me all sorts of things you could do, like having the events you mentioned and all that stuff. It was never an intuitive thing to set up, and you never really had
exactly right
that it was working.
It's not intuitive. That's exactly right. That's why training is required. You need somebody or something to tell you, here's how to use the tool. Cause it's unlikely that you're out on your own. I didn't. I'm the one that was my version of banging into the walls a million times until I figured it out. And then my job is to help shortcut say, okay, here is the thing that works really, really well when it comes to this tool. And, so that we can help students shortcut that.
And I was also going to ask you the question, is there actually a competitor? Because I would have thought that Google was so far ahead on this, that's almost not even catchable in some respect, but maybe Microsoft can catch them.
There's a lot of competitors now because of years ago, people might be familiar with Universal Analytics. That was kind of like the more recent version of Google Analytics was that, and they deprecated that. They shut that down. In fact, July 1st is when it's gone forever. At that point, they're killing it. So now you've got this platform gone. And it wasn't an upgrade. They created a brand new Google Analytics. They shared the same name, but they were completely different platforms. That's why one is completely gone. It's not upgrading another one. Everybody had to reset their accounts and start over from scratch. So when Google made everybody do that, and it was necessary, they had no choice. When they did that, because they were basically recreating a Google Analytics for today's world, not trying to improve the Google Analytics from 20 years ago that they've been trying to build on over. They just can't do it. So they have to recreate this new platform. When they did that, they forced everyone to go, do I really want to do this? Or let's go see what else is out there. And that's where you have Matomo, PayWick Pro, Adobe Analytics in the corporate world took a big chunk away from Google Analytics. So there's been a lot of fracturing of analytics platforms. I think Google Analytics 4 is still the biggest. I think there will be a lot of people, because we saw this in Universal Analytics way back in the day, where people would leave it because it didn't have a feature and they would do some paid product. And then all of a sudden Google goes, now we do this feature, and they all came back. And that's starting to happen a little bit with Google Analytics 4. There was this initial revolt against it. And I think over the next few years, it'll get better and better, especially because I think Google's going to own AI eventually when they get out of their own way, figure out how to unify everything, because they have the best data sources. So if they can do this, and they've got BigQuery and everything else that goes on the data side, and they can just sort of, because they know AI, they know machine learning, they've been doing it for a long, long time. I mean, they're the ones that kicked out the transformer model that caused all the AI explosion to happen. So if they can be the originators of that and contain it there, that platform is going to be just rock star. So that's kind of why we're like, all right, we see the other ones, but we're going to stay steady Eddie on this one, because it is improving, month after month after month, which is good. I mean, that's kudos to that team, because they do listen to feedback, and they're doing their best to keep up with it and to improve things as they go to improve that platform.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we work with Google a lot, with Google Cloud at least. And I can definitely tell you that from my perspective, or share at least my experience, that they're really on it. Like, this is a mover shaker kind of mentality. So I think they will get there. But I think their problem is there's too many things they have to clean out of their own offering in some respects.
I think there's a lot of silos there.
Yes.
It's exactly right. There's a lot of legacy architecture in their company structures that have caused a lot of these symptoms that they're trying to deal with. And they have to restructure at that core company level in order to unify everybody. I think, that could unlock that. Like I said, it's starting to happen, and it's just, I wish it was like 2 years ago that it happened, but I do expect that as the time goes on, they will figure it out. Just sort of seems, at least the probabilities are there.
And then tell me, I mean, if you work with a customer, I mean, from the point that you've connected up your site to Google Analytics, when do you actually have good information that you can use that's actionable? Is it a month? Is it a week? Is it a day?
No, it's surprisingly, that's a really good question, because it's more like measurement strategies, not so much that tool itself that determines that answer. It's just how you think about measurement. Most companies, they are tool first companies. They buy the tool to do a thing, or they think the tool is going to do, and they buy another tool that does something else, and another tool does something else, and another tool does something else. And the problem with that, especially in the world of measurement, is there's typically, the company does not have a measurement strategy that dictates how and when they use the tools. Instead, they buy all the tools teach them how to use teach them lightly how to use the tool, but that's the tool telling you what your strategy should be. But then there's another tool that tells you what your strategy should be, and another tool that's made for a different strategy. So you have all these different tools that are dictating your strategy. That's a problem, because they can't do that. It's your company. So measurement should be a measurement strategy focused first, and then how and when do I use the tool, right? So strategy leads tools, not the other way around. So the reason I say that is it goes back to what you were talking about with like, okay, how long should I keep data coming through until I can effectively use it? Well, when it comes to measurement, we sort of have 3 steps to a framework we teach. We start planning out the measurement. We build out the measurement. That's where you're actually setting up those tools. And then you launch and basically use the measurement. And so using the measurement is where a lot of people can get a little messed up, because they think, okay, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to magically see an insight, right? That'll naturally make me a better marketer or improve results, whatever it is. Sometimes that happens, but it's extremely rare. So much so that I wouldn't even try doing it. So instead, when you're launching your measurement, the first thing you do is you listen. And what are we listening for? We're listening for trends and patterns. And it takes surprisingly little data to get a trend, to see a pattern. It can be a few days. And after a few days, you start seeing, okay, my opt-in rates are, 28% maybe for a certain opt-in one day. The next opt-in, the next day was at 32%. The next opt-in, might be at 30%. It's going to be unusual to see 28%, 72%, 0%. It's going to be unusual when you see the traffic coming through. And I would say roughly 100 people a day is all you really need to do that.
Okay.
When you see that come through, right, for a few days, you start going, okay, 27, 32, 37. You're going to be between roughly 25 to 35. And then you can keep, this is the trick, you want to have a forecast. And this is the piece that people miss. They are listening for trends and patterns, and then they are trying to take actions on those trends and patterns, but they're missing the fact they should have had a forecast. In other words, so how did I expect what did I expect my opt-in rate to actually be? And that's the thing. They're like, well, I don't know. That's why I'm measuring it. And like, that's the mistake. You have to at least guess. So I might say, okay, well, I think my opt-in rate is going to be 50% to cold traffic. So I then measure, I let it run for a few days and I see 28%, 30%, 32%. I go, okay, well, maybe I was off on the 50%. But when I email my list and ask them to opt in to something, they are at 50%. And you start going, oh, warmer traffic is a little higher. So now I'm starting to learn that opt-in rates with warm traffic should be around 45%. Opt-in rates or 50%, right? Opt-in rates with cold traffic might be 25 to 35%. And you start to learn those patterns so you can forecast them. So if I was going to come up with a new offer next week, that's what I would forecast. If it was cold traffic, I'd say, okay, 25 to 35%-ish is where we should be, I think. And so we're going to measure against that, let it run for a few days. Do we see that happening? If it's matching our forecast, what does that tell us? Well, we can scale traffic because it's working the way it was supposed to. We thought about it ahead of time. We guessed as how we thought it was going to be and we hit it. But if it comes in substantially higher, right, what actions are we going to take? It's like, well, maybe we are doing cold traffic, but it's that opt-in rate is so high. There's two things going on. One is the offer might be amazing, but that's unlikely. The more likely scenario is we're targeting too tightly on that cold traffic and we could expand it out, have a bigger audience. Our opt-in probably should drop down, but net will have more leads. And that's where the forecasting comes in. You thinking about how your marketing machinery should work. And then you use measurement to see, is it working the way it's supposed to? Are we getting the behaviors that we're supposed to get? And again, if you are, great, scale traffic. If you're not, you're going to see where that breakdown is so that you can focus your marketing resources to improve that, right? At least give you a better than average chance. And again, 3 days, it doesn't take a lot. And that's what I love about it. Because I did CRO, I did split testing, multivariate. I've been through the ringer. I think sequential testing for me is the best option for most companies, especially for those that don't have a ton of traffic coming in. Because within 3 days, you can see a pattern. And then if you need to adjust something, you'll know it. You adjust, give it another 3 days. You'll see the change, right? Or you won't, but you will see it happen pretty quickly. It's surprising, but it helps you move a lot faster when you do that.
So can I show you the Digital Workplace Works podcast?
Yeah, of course.
Because that's the only one that's working at the moment. And I'd just be curious to to ask your opinion, really. Let's share it on screen. There we go. It should be shared now. And you see it?
Got it.
Right. So this is what I was looking at. Well, I got to the point we're talking. So when you look at this information, when you look at the street, what are you looking for to begin with? What's the starting point?
This is a great question, but I'm gonna give you a quick lesson on Google Analytics 4. The way to think about Google Analytics 4, it's actually 4 different analytics tools in one platform. The first one you're looking at is what they call the home, and these are what they call workspaces, which is why I think about it like this. So on the left-hand side, you see that navigation, we have a little home icon. If you expand that out, so there's your home. This one, skip. It's not worth it. It doesn't teach you anything. It doesn't give you anything useful at all.
None of this is useful.
None of this is useful. It's way too generic to give you anything at all. It doesn't matter. You can't do anything with this. It's too generic. It's like people saw your site. That's all it tells you. So the next one down is reports. That is the one that's closer to the original Google Analytics. So this is what tells you some specifics. So in this case, right, we're going to go, okay, well, I want to see kind of where traffic is coming from and what the results of that traffic are. So where you're going to see that is if you go to in this case, your business objective reports, and you expand out where it says generate leads. Yep. You will see now there's 2 acquisition reports. One is user, one is traffic. User is the traffic, the original traffic source. Again, Google Analytics version of that, the original traffic source that brought a new user to you. That's what this is. It's okay. I don't particularly use it because very rarely am I asking what the original traffic source was. It doesn't matter who brought you to my site 2 years ago. That's irrelevant. What's more useful is this one, which is what traffic source created the visit that just happened. That's what I want to know, right? So now you're in traffic acquisition, the report to use. First thing to do is switch this channel. They keep it very generic, but I don't really like the channels like this, but you'll see a little drop down where it says session primary channel group. If you go down to the bottom left, if you scroll down to the data table there, click that. Yep. Now go to where it says session source medium. So that means the session is just a visit. So during this visit, here were the traffic sources is what it's telling you. Here's who sent you traffic. here's the type of traffic. That's what the medium means, just the type of traffic that they sent you. So you can see you got Google Organic is doing pretty well. You've got a lot of direct none, which is people typing it in, right? Or potentially untagged traffic. Sometimes that might happen with an email being sent that isn't identifying itself as an email. So Google doesn't know, they click on the link in an email and it pops open so it's direct none. You've got Bing that's sending you search traffic. You've got Baidu sending you search traffic. And you can see some of the socials with LinkedIn, Facebook as well, sending you with the call.
Well, I would have thought we'd get a lot of LinkedIn because that's very little messaging, but
and this is why I like this better than those channel reports, because here you can see the specific source of traffic, which already starts leading you to a little more action, right? Because like you said, LinkedIn should be doing more. Why is LinkedIn not doing more? Now, let's go back to LinkedIn, try to make a more compelling post, add an image, make it easier to get to the action, whatever it is, right? Now, over to the right, the way to sort of read this report. So that first column tells you who is sending you traffic and what type of traffic they're sending you. These next few columns are the quantity stuff. So how many users, how many visits did each user have? And then how many of those visits, those sessions were engaged? The way it tells engaged, unless you change this, which my guess is you haven't, but that's okay, is 10 seconds. So after 10 seconds on the page, or if they click to another page, they treat that as engaged, which is good because now you can see, okay, here's my engagement from different traffic sources. And you start to see like, wow, this one traffic source might send you a ton of traffic, but they're not engaging. For example, look at your direct none. So you've got direct none traffic coming in, very low engagement from that. So whatever source that is, whether it's people going directly to the site or clicking in from some other email, something like that, they're not sticking around very long. But when you look at Google Organic, right? And don't look at the numbers per se. It's the pattern you're looking for. So 9 on 1, 22, it's double. That's how I would read that. I wouldn't say it's 20 seconds. I don't care about 22 seconds. I care that it's double what direct none is. So Google's double that. Look at Bing. Bing, double what Google's doing, triple what Google's doing almost. So you can see, okay, these organic traffic sources are good because at least they're spending a little bit of time. Now, 20 seconds, not a lot. So you want to still kind of focus, okay, what can I get them to actually engage with? What can I make it easier on that lander, right? To maybe, help them out with that. But that at least gives you some clue as to what behaviors are happening on the site when you learn to read this report. So that's sort of the quantity stuff. Then you've got the engagement stuff that continues with engaged sessions per user, engaged visits, or they call them events, right? Remember all the different behaviors that are happening, a page view, a scroll, a click, things like that. All these different events. So you can get an idea of how much activity they're actually doing. Now, this one's interesting because when you see this direct none, you see they're doing about average. Everyone, for the most part, has about 5 events. All the different traffic sources have 5 events. Some of them are slower, which means they're taking time in between the events. The direct none, much faster. So they're going through those events really quickly, which is why your engaged sessions are so low, right? So that's where you go, okay, the direct none traffic is coming in to maybe achieve something. That might be a reasonable explanation, where they're coming in with a purpose and they're out. Whereas Google Organic and the organic sources, right? The type of organic traffic, that search traffic, they're exploring the site a little bit, going a little bit slower through this. And then you have off to the right, so you've got your engagement, you scroll all the way over to the right, and that would be the bottom scroll bar there to see that. You start to see the results of all of that engagement, where it says event count, all events. Next to that, you see key events, all events. And you can change those drop downs. And the next to that is a conversion rate, where you can do conversion rate stuff. So again, that's on the right-hand side at the very bottom. You just scroll it over. There you go. So now you can choose a certain event. So you can go to session key event rate. Let's click on where it says all events there. This is on the right-hand side of that report, all the way to the right. There you go, right there. Yeah. Perfect. So these are the events that are currently set up as key events. Purchase is set up by default, but you have to actually set it up to collect data for that. It'll be there. But it doesn't know a purchase happens yet. You have to tell it when a purchase happens.
So we don't sell anything, but we don't sell anything on the site, but we do have links to sign up as a guest. So we would be
so that would be a key event that you would set up. That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Now let me give you some. This was one of the cool things about GA4. It is collecting some event. You just haven't identified any key events. So we can't use this conversion rate thing, but we can go to where it says event count. If you just click off of that, that window will go away. And then we click under event count, click there. Those are the different events that it is collecting. So it's automatically collecting a form submit. Now, I will tell you, sometimes form submits can be a lot of false positives the way they naturally collect it. So we typically try to turn that off and use something else. But if this makes sense to you, we're like, yeah, about 5 people filled out the form in the last, whatever it's been, 7 days. Then you go, okay, that makes sense to me. That's probably, and then you can use that as a decent signal. The page view event, how many people saw a page? Every time a page loads, it's a new page view event. Click event is when they're leaving to go off your site. And then you've got scroll. That naturally happens. The way that's built in is when they hit the bottom of a page, 90%. And then it triggers scroll. So you can see which traffic sources are causing scroll, which traffic sources are better at page views, which traffic sources are better at click, right? Whatever the behavior, which traffic sources are better at form submit. And so that's what starts to tell you, okay, this particular traffic source is really good at this specific behavior. If I want more of that behavior, I should scale that traffic source, right? Or start to explore a traffic source. And then you start to go with this other traffic source, like example, email. Email would be really good at probably closing the deal, right? You nurture them through email and you get them to buy or submit or do whatever the behavior is that they're supposed to do on a form. That might be incredible at closing the sort of the loop, right? Getting them to complete that customer journey. But your organic is really good at getting them to start the journey, you know? And then you might have a retargeting campaign in the middle to get them on the email list in the first place. But when you set all that stuff up and you start to use even this one report, this is the one we mostly use most of the time, you can start to see some actions of like, oh, here's how I can start to combine the different traffic sources. So they can each take advantage of their unique superpower, right? That they bring a certain behavior. And I can start moving them through the journey because this one makes them aware. This one gets them to consider moving forward. This one gets them to actually transact, at the end, so in your case, get in the completed form. So that's kind of what it's doing offhand. So again, it's not 100% set up, but even though it's not, you still see some stuff there. I would think about this like the old days of the internet with you would dial up and the picture would have to load kind of grainy, right? And then it would have to progressively load again and be a little clearer and progressively load again, and be a little clearer till you can finally start making out what that picture is. This would be what I would call kind of a blurry picture, but you can kind of make out that you're looking at a tree, something like that. It's not, you don't know what tree, but okay, it's a tree. So you can make out some stuff and still take some decent action.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. So like here we have regionally, obviously quite a lot of US, UK traffic, which doesn't surprise me. India actually interests me because not expecting much there, and South Africa doesn't surprise me either. But I always find it interesting to see where people are interacting with the website from. Obviously, if you had the full picture of where the podcast have been listened to, and then how much of that drives traffic to here, that could be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely right. And you can see what pages they're landing on. In other words, what the first page is of the traffic source is like.
Oh, where would you see that?
So that's the landing page reports right underneath that traffic acquisition. There you go. And this will tell you, okay, here's the page they're landing on. So you can see, okay, your home page, right? And there's your guest sign up page. And then you've got the other one, some other guests that have been, looks like that are set up. People are taking a look at. So this is what's kind of nice about it. It tells you that, okay, here are the pages that are popular, or at least that traffic is being sent to.
Yeah. So this, I could tell you, I know this is from our LinkedIn reach out. So this could make sense to me. Interesting that Laurie comes up quite a lot. He's a good friend of mine. So I'd give him a shout and he's looking you up.
Yeah, I love that. Exactly. He might be showing in organic search results. We've had that happen before where we have certified measurement marketers that we have a little directory for, and some of those show up in search results for them as their number one search result.
But it's interesting. It's interesting because that's the episode with him, security by design.
Oh, there you go.
And then tagged by these two things. So that's obviously coming up in the search.
Yep. Yeah.
That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. And if you hit plus, I'm going to do one more little thing here. If you hit that blue plus, that's to the right of the word landing page. Yeah. So what this is called is a secondary dimension. So type in source because you want to see like the traffic source, right? So see where it says session source medium? Third one down, click that.
Yeah.
Yep. So now what this is doing is this is breaking it down and it's saying, here are the different traffic sources that cause this result. So the guest sign up. So Loric, they're coming in for Google Organic. It's search now. You don't have to guess. Whereas guest sign up, they're going directly to it, probably from an email or something like that. That is otherwise untagged. So that's how you can prove it. But you see the other cybersecurity, information security, those are also direct. So that's something else. Maybe there was an email that they sent that said, stuff out, or it could have been that. But you definitely can see that in Loric's case, it's Google Organic. They're searching for something that popped that up, as well as the bringing hospital quality care to the home with remote monitoring, right? That interview with Dr. Both. So, but that's what's kind of nice. Now you can start to see how this platform starts to open up like a flower a little bit, right? It's starting to share a little bit more with some basic skills of, knowing what these, because all these reports work the same way for the most part. So once you learn the basics of what all this stuff kind of is trying to tell you, the platform becomes a little easier to see a natural story. It doesn't look like so much like the Matrix,
Yeah, this is fantastic. This will be really useful. Thank you. it definitely removes some of the horror of playing with Google Analytics.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the idea is like, this stuff doesn't have to be complicated. Everything can seem complicated at first because it can be overwhelming, whether it's learning management skills, building a team to build the company style stuff, or if it's learning Google Analytics 4, right? But a lot of that is just the strategies that we are currently using is what's causing that. The system that we're trying to learn the tool with is the problem, right? So when you have a different system, like the one that I just walked you through, all of a sudden you go, oh, now the tool starts to make a little bit more sense. And all it was a different system to use the tool versus the original system that you were trying to work on your own, which is that intuitive system. Because obviously that platform is not designed for intuition. But yeah, Clarity definitely is. I would still recommend Clarity. And it's a yes and. It's not either or. I like both. Which is
could you use them together?
Hopefully it's helpful. Oh yeah, absolutely. Because they're completely different tools. Completely different. Two different scripts. And Microsoft Clarity is very, very visual. So heat maps, scroll maps, not a lot of data tables. That's not what they're there for. Screen recording, so you can watch how people are interacting with the different pages. It's super cool. So yeah, it's a yes and for sure. But if you have to choose one to get started with, Clarity, because it's the easiest for beginning measurement.
Well, I think I'm going to play with it today. And then how do you set it up on the side? Is it just a widget or is it code on the screen? Or?
Yeah, you just create your free account and then they'll give you a script, paste it on your site.
That's it.
Yeah, it's super simple. That's what I love it. Microsoft really knocked it out. They did a great job with that tool. They really did.
Great. Well, I think that's been a hugely valuable session. How would be the best way people to get hold of you to chat further?
I'll give a couple of ways. So if the profit school stuff makes sense, you learn sort of management and ownership level skills and everything else around growing a business and a team. I would go to profitschool.com. You can also go to profitschool.com/value with 2 U's. And that'll take you to a place where you can sign up for a free community that we have back there. So you can join that. We give training out practically every week that's back there for our free members. And it's pretty cool place to sort of converse with other entrepreneurs that are trying to figure this thing out too. And then if you are interested in the measurement stuff and you want to learn that, measurementmarketing.io would be that brand. And again, if you go to measurementmarketing.io/value with 2 U's, that'll take you to a place where you can sign up for a free membership that we have there as well. We call it the Toolbox membership, but we actually there's an entire course there on how to learn measurement as a strategy and implement it into your organization. So you can unlock the power of these tools a little bit easier.
Fantastic. And I appreciate you using the new name.
See, there you go. It's all about being a value maker.
That's it. Great stuff. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Ryan.
Let's keep in touch. Let's chat in the future. I'd love to do another episode with you. We maybe spend some time on the profit school stuff.
That's perfect. Yeah, anytime. We'll be here.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. All the best.
Thanks, Ryan. Take care.
Cheers. Bye. Thank you for listening to our episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please share it with your friends and colleagues. Help us grow our network. Please also check out our website at www.valuu.work and our product that's on there. It's something we worked really hard on. We hope to benefit you.